Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Dr. Hafiza. The topic that Anis and I have chosen is the earlier a second language is introduced in school programs, the greater the likelihood of success in learning. Before we start, we would like to thank you for taking the time to listen to our video presentation. The earlier a second language is introduced in school programs, the greater the likelihood of success in learning. So, is it true? Many researchers have been discussing about this topic. According to Major 2014, researchers have continually failed to come to a resolute conclusion on how age at the time of second language learning affects the eventual proficiency level of the learner. AOA, or the age of onset of acquisition, refers to the point in time when an individual begins to learn a second language. Major 2014 stated that it can often be the same time that a learner moves to a new country that speaks the L2, but not always. It might refer to immersion classes taken in the home country, and it's also possible that even after immigrating to a new country, an individual continues speaking the first language for some time. We've been hearing earlier is better when it comes to learn language. Although most research suggests that earlier is better, meaning that younger L2 learners are better at learning language than our older learners, the causes of this particular phenomenon continue to be controversial. This is because some researchers believe there is in fact a fundamental difference in the way early learners acquire an L2 versus late learners. Others believe there is a gradual decline in language learning abilities across the lifespan. Still, others consider the variation to be a difference in motivation and other affective factors. According to Patkowski, 1994, the time has come for the field to accept the notion of an age-related constraint on language acquisition and for the controversy to circumscribe itself to the discussion of its causes. When discussing on this topic, we can't run away from the critical period hypothesis, where it suggests that there is a period in human development when the brain is predisposed to acquire languages more easily than at any other time. Younger learners acquire second languages automatically from mere exposure, while older learners have to make conscious and labored efforts. This inferred difficulty for post-puberty learners is the likely reason why both the children's parents and the adult students agreed with this idea. The children's parents might view early English education as a chance to give their children an opportunity that they perceive they never had. By learning from a younger age, they hope their children will succeed where they had failed. As for the adult students, they probably see their late introduction as a potential reason for their fossilization and lack of improvement. However, Alice 1985 disagreed as that it may not be as simple as that. She stated that while age does not alter the route of acquisition, it does have a marked effect on rate and ultimate success. For example, in terms of rate, adults appear to do better than children 6 to 10 years old, while teenagers 12 to 15 years old appear to outperform both adults and children. So, what about the decision when to start a second language in school? The decision about when to introduce second or foreign language instruction must depend on the objectives of the language program in the particular social context of the school. When the objective is native-like performance in the second language, then it may be advisable to begin exposure to the language as early as possible, as long as learners have extensive exposure to and opportunities to use the second language in a variety of contexts. The research evidence is fairly strong that those who begin second language learning at an early age are most likely to eventually be indistinguishable from native speakers. However, even in cases where native-like proficiency is targeted, it is important to recognize certain disadvantages of an early start for second language learning. When an early start means that children have little opportunity to continue to develop their first language, the resulting subtractive bilingualism may have lasting negative consequences.
Age is one of the major factors in L2 acquisition field, and over the years, various hypotheses have been proposed to account for the correlation between age of acquisition and the degree of ultimate mastery of the second language. The decision regarding when is the suitable time to introduce second or foreign language instruction must depend on the objective of the language program in the particular social context of the school. If the objective requires not native-like performance from the students, the condition is quite different. It is where teaching or introducing second language at a later age is more efficient. First, when the goal of the educational program is basic communicative skill where requiring not native-like proficiency by the students. Second, if there is a strong commitment to maintaining and developing the child's first language. These two objectives are important to be the guidance in achieving the objective of not native-like performance. Basic communicative skills are skills involving listening and speaking, as well as reading and writing. Communication skills can be defined as the transmission of a message that involves the shared understanding within the context in which the communication takes place, as according to Saunders and Mills, 1999. Effective communication skills are really important for students in transmitting knowledge, classroom learning, and also interaction with other students in the class. To teach in accordance with the ability and capability of the student, a teacher needs to adopt such skills of communication which motivate the student towards their learning process. According to Sangbi 2012. Writing and reading are two skills that are taught the most in school in Malaysia, while there are only a little exposure on listening and speaking skills. It might be because examination in system in Malaysia is heavy on the writing part, where students are required to write essays and answer comprehension questions that needs reading skills. Grammar is crucial in writing aspect, and with regard to morphology and syntax, the adolescents do best, followed by the adults and the children. Hence, adults learn faster than children, and this is more applicable to grammar than pronunciation. According to Wood, 1981, from the view of education practice, it is of a great importance to understand as far as possible how maturational constraints interact with environmental factors in the acquisition of L2. The acquisition of grammar has often regarded to be subject to critical period effects, and it is possible that developmental changes during childhood or around puberty are responsible for the observed difference between L1 and L2 grammatical processing, as according to Newport et al. 2002. Those who learn L2 at a later age are claimed to overly rely on the declarative system, which is subserve the storage of memorized words and phrases, even for functions such as grammatical processing, in which native speakers depend upon the procedural system, which involve the in-processing combinatorial rules of language and which depend on the networks. In assumption, experience and practice assist learners in developing procedural skills in the L2. Grammatical processing is highly proficient in L2. Learners may eventually become native-like. There are the guidelines for the authorities or educational policy makers to plan and design the allocations of the resources for second and foreign language learning, mainly regarding the effort for serious teaching of language to younger children. For example, in China, according to the national curriculum, L2 teaching starts at primary 4, 10 years old in urban areas. However, some schools in rural areas cannot meet this requirement. It may not commence as late as junior high, 12 years old. In Japan, foreign languages are not included in the national curriculum. However, in the UK, according to the national curriculum, foreign languages are not taught until 11 years, unlike all other subjects. In Malaysia, formal education of L2, English learning and teaching, has started since Standard 1, 7 years old in primary school, and it continues until secondary schools. Hence, different approaches are required for different age groups, and it also depends on the objective of L2, teaching and learning. Furthermore, the other objective of not-native-like performance is a strong commitment to maintaining and developing the child's first language. How does the child's first language help with the learning of a second language? If children are proficient in their first language, it means that they already know about language. Indirectly, they can apply this knowledge to a different set of circumstances, which in this case is another language. If a child is proficient in their first language, their cognitive ability has developed enough to support them in their second language. For example, they already know about guessing the meaning of a word from the context, they know how to predict meaning from a text, and they know about the text structure. Children who are successful second language learners are usually very proficient in their first language. It is less usual for children to be a successful second language learners when they have little knowledge and ability in their first language. In conclusion, despite the widespread belief and hypothesis that the earlier the better when it comes to introducing and teaching L2 in school, evidence suggests that while this is often true, it is not always true. Debates about this issue often lose sight of the fact that an early start to L2 learning in school often means that learners have more time to learn. It is definitely early L2 instruction is often recommended in order to extend learners' time to learn. However, neither an early start nor additional time for L2 learning will produce more learning than a later start or less exposure if the instruction that students are exposed to does not take advantage of additional time and exposure. Effective instruction is crucial if the extra time and early start are to be beneficial. Indeed, quality instruction may be more important to be compared to the time and age of learning L2. There are many aspects to learn about effective L2 instruction in school, yet we have begun to make significant progress in understanding this critical aspect of L2 learning in school.
With that, we would like to end our topic presentation on the earlier a second language is introduced in school programs, the greater the likelihood of success in learning. Thank you and happy holidays!